So let's begin today's session. Back and neck straight. Just sit comfortably on your just gently close. You can remove them. Placing the hands on the knees. You can choose to adopt any mudra. And slowly shift the mind to the breathing. Keeping the body still and stable, but relaxed at the same time. There is no unnecessary stress or pressure on any part of the body. And when you feel ready, begin to deepen your breath. Going for slow, long, and deep inhalations, slow, long, and deep exhalations. And relaxing the mind with each breath. And now slowly begin to add a little bit retention. So after you inhale, hold the breath for 2 seconds and then go into the process of exhalation. Go at your own pace. You'll be chanting Om followed by the chanting mantra. Inhale deeply for Om. Shanti. Feel the vibrations. Join the palms together in front of the chest and rub the palms together. Place them on the eyes. Very slowly while blinking and looking at the palms. Open up your eyes. Start coming back with a big smile. And namaste to everyone. Let us begin today's session. So yesterday, we ended with the practices for an to begin to
You're freezing.
my voice is breaking.
Yeah, it freezes and then it all rushes out.
Wait, can you hear me?
I can hear
video
you.
on.
Yeah, it's better with the video off. I think it doesn't cut out as much.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
No, you've gone.
Ashtang, ASHTANGA. In this word asht, right? ASHT. Asht, this term means eight, and ang, ANGA, ang means limb. So it means 8 limbs. When we talk of Ashtanga Yoga, we are talking of a process which has 8 limbs in it. So there are 8 aspects when we come to the beginner level, a person who is starting at a beginner level in the practices of Raj Yoga, right? And Raj Yoga, again, as I told you, even the beginner of this practice will be at a very high level. Why? Because you start with yamas and niyamas, and if a beginner isn't like that deep into the sadhana, they won't be able to. And if you are not able to incorporate the yamas and niyamas, you will never be able to go to the next step, right? So, well, right? You have to. Otherwise, if you feel you cannot work with the yoga, then you can go for other forms of then you can go for other forms of and niyamas are eliminated at the beginner level and they come up at an advanced level, right? But when you are choosing this path, okay, wait, give me a moment. Just again drop a message. Okay, so we were talking of Ashtang Yoga, and I was telling you Asht means 8 and Ang means limbs, right? The first half, if you divide the word Asht means 8, Ang means limbs. So 8 aspects of this entire process of yoga need to be undertaken for a beginner level student, right? So beginner level student, a person who is beginning with Raj Yoga, they have to follow the yamas and niyamas. So I'll write down all 8 limbs. But yeah, for basic understanding, the first 2 limbs are very important to follow. If you believe you cannot follow them, or they're going to generate a lot of guilt in the mind, right? They're going to generate it's too hard for you and you are not there yet, then choose some other form of yoga which is going to develop your willpower, or which places yamas and niyamas later on. But when you talk of Ashtanga Yoga, you begin with yamas and niyamas. So the 8 limbs, I will write all of them down. Right. So first one is Yama, Yama. Niyama. Second one, Niyama. Then Asana, Asana. Pranayama, Pranayama. Pranayama. Pratyahar, Pratyahar. Pratyahar. Dharana, Dharana. Dharana. Dhyana, Dhyana. And Samadhi, Samadhi. right? So these are the 8 limbs: Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. After a while, the speed at which I have spoken all of them, you will also be able to speak them, because, this is the essence of the yoga philosophy, right? This is the thing that is talked of whenever we talk of, yoga darshan or yoga philosophy, right? So as you go deeper and deeper into the study, Patanjali's yoga sutras are going to be a very prominent part, and the uh, Ashtanga yoga is again going to be a very important part, right? So let's begin and see why this, like how this entire step has been laid down, right? Why did he give this entire process, and only in this format, why did he give, right? So, Raj Yogi already is already very developed, right? Has been practicing yoga for a while, and uh, uh, you know um, or has accumulated, good past, uh, I can say, merits, right? So can easily begin with the yamas, right? So to them, even though yamas and niyamas are, on a deep level, when you go on a deep level, it is, uh, it comes in everything you do, basically, you know. So even though it is uh, for us, it is very hard to observe everything we do, right? Most of the times, our mind runs away and we are not with what we are doing. But Raj Yogi, has this awareness that whatever they are doing is going to have an impact, right, on them. So when we start with yamas are basically, more than rules of living in the society. When you live with, people around you, so generally when we talk of yoga, people say that you have to get secluded, but no, Raj Yogi can exist in the society. Why? Because first thing that, Patanjali ji talked of, he knew that it is so hard to, renounce the responsibilities, right? Now if I have a particular responsibility towards my family, towards my children, or, towards anybody, right? So I cannot leave those behind just because I want to walk on the path of yoga. Yeah, I have to fulfill those responsibilities, right? So Raj Yogi can exist in the society also till a very high level. You can be a part of the society and practice Raj Yoga. So first thing, he, gave the rules of yamas, where how you have to exist with the society, the people, your surroundings, everything around you. How do you have to exist with them? So he gave five yamas, right? Five total. They are five in number, and they start with the first one, ahimsa. Ahimsa, ahimsa, right? Or non-violence. So starting with the first one, ahimsa or non-violence. So first thing he said, he said that whenever you are existing in society, how your existence should be. It should be one which, imbibes non-violence, right? So violence doesn't always mean that you are, going out of your way and killing someone, right? Violence takes place in very subtle forms as well. And, a yogi has deep understanding of whatever they are doing, right? And that is why, you will see that yogi never, takes the uh, car or transport, you will see yogi always walks, right? Doesn't, have a lot of clothes, doesn't have a lot of, uh, possessions, all of these things. Yogi mostly just walks, and even like sometimes without slippers, right? Because all of this transport, all of these modern developments that we have seen, they are somewhere or the other hurting the nature. They are benefiting us as human beings, right? As if you see only from the perspective of a human being, how the human being is going to lead a good life, we should exploit more. We are still not up to the potential at which we can exploit the nature. But we are not the only ones living over here, right? There are plants, there are trees, there are so many there's so much diversity when you come to the animal kingdom, right? And we are just a part of millions of species that already exist. And because we have been given this higher intellect and the ability to do certain things, we are just not using the higher mind that we have been given. We are just exploiting for our own benefit, right? So in every action that you do, uh, it can include an act of violence. I was recently talking to someone, and they told me, like, how a Google search or sending an email creates so much destruction, right? So environment is constantly being harmed by the way in which you live, because you want to have certain luxuries in life. You do not think twice before harming someone, right? And this is what Patanjali ji is asking us to be more aware of. Whatever you do, right? We leave other species, we sometimes hurt other human beings because of the way in which we exist. We um, exploit certain things in such a way that there is such a big gap between people who are rich and people who are poor, right? We are more than exploiting nature, we are also exploiting each other, right? So when you stop doing these things, when you very slowly this will come, okay? So it won't be like one day you just completely stop doing everything, right? So this is going to come very little by little, but small changes can be made so that your existence in the society is much more harmonious, right? Otherwise, the way in which you are harming, someday you are also going to be harmed. It you know there is always a sense of balance that the nature creates, and more than a sense of balance, the nature doesn't wait. It will give you the result immediately, right? If you do something wrong, deep down you have done something wrong. Nobody caught you, but right? So when you somewhere start punishing yourself within only, right? When we get angry, or when we have such defilements of the mind, you will see that you are the first one who is punished. So when you live in a way that is violent on a very subtle level as well, you are immediately getting some form of punishment or the other. You might be aware of it, or you might not be aware of it, but it does happen. So be more mindful of whatever you do, you know rather than hurting the nature. Start working in harmony with the nature. That is when you will be able to see how much we have. Right now we just live in with a mind that everything is less, but there is so much abundance. We are just we have created blocks. Human beings, they have created certain blocks so that everything cannot be accessed by everyone, and there is enough in this world. you know so start existing in a more non-violent way. Make changes on any level that you can, so that you hurt less and less, right? Then we come to the second one, satya. Satya. Satya or truth, right? So now, nobody is talking about what your truth is or what someone else's truth is. When you will see somebody in a conflict, two people, and suppose you are a common friend, right? So you will see that when you hear the story of one side, you will find that they are also what from where they are coming, they are also thinking correctly, right? And then when you see the other side, right, then you hear to then you go and listen out to the other friend. You will see that whatever they are saying is also correct, where they are coming from is also correct, right? So I'm not talking about subjective truths where and we have our own truth, so we also process that information based on our own truth and then say that maybe that person was wrong or that person was right, right? So all of these truths, these are not being talked of over here. When he talked of truth or satya, he is actually talking of the universal truths that exist. When you read the teachings of Buddha or any enlightened person, you will see that they came across certain truths of life and they have stated them as it is, right? Like, you know, if you are born, you are bound to die one day. Anybody, anything on earth, it is true for each and everything, right? Maybe the life is very long, but if they are born, they are bound to face death as well, because it is a part of the cycle. It is a part of the package that we get, right? So these universal truths, being in touch with these universal truths and living accordingly, right? So right now I told you this truth, right? So what we do, okay, we hear this truth, and then we go back to our day-to-day life, whatever we are doing and however we are doing it, right? But most of the things that we do or the way in which we live is like everything is going to be permanent, like in Indian tradition, I would say, tell you, in Indian culture, we are taught to grow up and then own uh, get a good job and own certain things by a certain age, right? So one of them is buying a house for your own self, which is very good. Again, it's a good intention that has been set up, but you know people spend their entire life trying to acquire that thing, and for what? They are not going to live forever, right? So it's not bad to have these ambitions, but people approach these ambitions with a lot of permanence in their mindset, that we are going to have something permanent, right? But you are not permanent. Your life is not permanent. If you are born, you are bound to die, right? So people spend their entire lives sometimes just paying out debts for something they have a desire to own, right? But uh, by the end they realize there is no point. Why? Because you know you could have done so many other things in that same whatever money you had or whatever things you had, the time that you spent you know constantly worrying and having to earn, you could have done so many other things, right? So this wanting to attain permanence for something that is so impermanent, right? We live our lives in that way, right? Especially when COVID came, when COVID came, a lot of people got scared and they started hoarding, right? Keeping a lot of things at home, that what if they run out, and because of their what if it runs out, everybody else who was in actual need could not acquire those things, right? So never live with this mindset that what if, right? The way in which you're living, it should reflect the realities of life, right? So getting in touch with the universal truths and then leading your life in that manner is the truth that he is talking of when he talks of the this the yama of satya, right? So next one we have aste. aste or sorry, non-stealing. Aste or non-stealing, right? So when we come to this one, huh, so non-stealing, again, this is an attitude, right? When you go on a deeper level, on a very normal level, it's like not taking anything without somebody's permission, right? So now, uh, suppose there is something kept somewhere and you really want to acquire that thing, so just take the permission of the person who owns that thing, right? Do not just go and pick that thing up and you know uh, be very free that it was kept over there and it was for ac- uh, access by everyone, right? Always be mindful that whatever you are acquiring, you should take permission, right, of the person who owns that area, right? Suppose you are getting fruits from some plant, right, or tree, right, and you are uh, going and eating that. It's not wrong to do it, but if that land is owned by someone else, you are just passing by and you just happen to take that fruit or get that fruit, then at least take the permission of the person, right? Do not take things without anyone's permission, because no, this will come under the yama of non-stealing, right? If you ask, that is all right, but if you don't ask, it will be counted as stealing. So be very mindful of the intention that you have in your mind, right? You know what kind of intention you enter with, right? Whenever you enter some space or some uh, you know uh, uh, exist among a group of people, you know what your intentions are. It doesn't matter what the other person's intention is, right? The other person can be very giving and can say that this is nothing to ask about, but for you, it's not yours, and it is always good to take permission. No matter how small a thing is, it is always good to take permission before you use it or acquire that thing, right? On a very deep level, also, we steal, right? So, ideas, thoughts, uh, you know, uh, even thoughts of wanting to steal. Sometimes we get very jealous, like that person has that thing, and it generates this other thought. This thought is followed by the other thought where you want to acquire that thing. you know you are just like, I wish I had this thing, and you want to just you know at least immediately want to acquire that thing, right? So this thing, even on a thought level, very deeply, we are living our lives in this way only. I wish I had this, I wish I had that, right? We are constantly seeing everybody around us, and we are being influenced by that thing. We don't know what we want, but we surely know what others have and we would like, right? So maybe when you acquire that thing, you won't be that happy, right? Maybe you are able to acquire everything in your life and still you are unhappy, and this happens with a lot of people. It's not something that is uncommon, right? So checking this attitude of the mind is so important, because if you have the same mind, no matter where you go, no matter how much you travel, or no matter what you do, those are instances which will push you towards change, will give you immediate change. But you will see that if you suppose travel or stay in a place for a long period of time, the mind pattern is going to come back, because you haven't worked on your mind. You have just worked on changing your environment, thinking that changing the environment might be better for you, right? So that is okay. Again, I'm saying that there is nothing wrong with this thing. The only thing is that you need to understand that always the work of the mind has to take place along with other changes that you make, right? So on a thought level, see if you are having these kinds of thoughts, then start working on those thoughts. right? Here and now, working on them is what is going to get you out of them. Going into deep level of meditation, don't ever skip your meditation classes. Meditation is the way to lead your life, right? So when you meditate, you will see your life, your approach, your intentions start changing very, very deeply. Even you wouldn't have thought that it could have such a deep impact, but they do change that deeply, right? So next one, next yama we have is non-possessiveness, right? Aparigraha, APARIGRAH, aparigraha, or non-possessiveness. I have a very great incident to narrate when it comes to this one, because I have personally experienced how attached I feel to my own things, right? So I am very attached to the t-shirts that I have, right? So if somebody is wearing my t-shirt, that person is very dear to me or close to me. That is why I would ever give my t-shirt to someone, right? So one time my sister, she really believes in whatever we cannot use, she really loves to go to NGOs and donate those things, right? So she is connected with an NGO, and whenever we have too many clothes, or we think we are not using certain clothes, she every once in a while she tells us all to go and check our uh, uh, closets, and just decide which things we have, which things we are not using, and just segregate them, so that we give it to her and she can go and donate those, right? So one fine day in the lockdown, she came to me and she said that I'm going and donating some of my clothes, so go and check if you have something. So I'll just go for one time, right? So I will donate everything that you also have to give, right? So I said, all right, so let me go and check, right? So when I went, I was checking, I was going through all the clothes that I have, and I was again and again, so most of us, we wear those 2, 3, 5 clothes only, right? And we love wearing those, and again, no matter how many clothes you take to a trip also with you will end up wearing those same ones again that you really like, right? So similarly, my almirah was full of t-shirts, right? And I was seeing each and every one of them to sort them, and I saw that a lot of them I hadn't even worn one time, or only a few times, right? But each and every time my mind was coming up with an excuse to keep that t-shirt. Suppose I had a red colored t-shirt, so my excuse was that I don't have other red colored like t-shirts in my wardrobe. So even though I don't wear this red color one, I should have all the colors, right? So I should keep that t-shirt with me. Then another one came, so I was just like, in this style, I only have this one, right? Now color doesn't matter. I have 10 black colored t-shirts of in my entire wardrobe. But what mattered to me was, in that style, I only have that one t-shirt. And eventually, this is how like I went on, and eventually I should have sorted out many more clothes, but I ended up giving very less out of them, because I felt so attached, and I felt so possessive of what I own, right? And in that same day, we do in that same way, we do these little things where we get very possessive about things, right? And we don't want to give them up, right? Even though we don't need them, right? So non-possessiveness means keeping something or having something which you do not need. So in that way, most of the things that you have, reflect how possessive we are, like as a generation, as being in this time. There's so many things that we don't require, but we buy them out of luxury, right? It's a luxury goods, there is a different category called luxury goods, right? So there are so many things that we acquire, right, just because we have this sense of possessiveness. And this especially comes to when we acquire clothes, because the clothing industry, there are so many clothes that are being produced and causing so much pollution. And as the fashion changes very fast, right? As the fashion changes, we want to buy the next thing that is in fashion, and then the next thing, and previous ones, you know they are just either lying around with us, or we just discard them. And I'm not willing to believe that there are not enough clothes in the world, but we always observe people who do not have proper clothing. Why is this happening? Right? It's a very big question. That why is this happening? That there are so many clothes in the world, but people, you will see a lot of poor people who do not have clothes, who do not have, more than one pair of clothes. Why is this happening? When there is no lack of that resource, still, as human beings, because we have so much desire to possess things, right, we do various things, right? Like, some clothes you will find they are priced really high, some are very cheap. We are making these things, we are creating this barrier, we are creating this distinction. Nothing else is, right? And this is the depth at which our possessive attitude affects someone who actually needs something but cannot acquire that, because we are having that attitude of possessiveness. And you will see, there is a very old story on this, that one time in our kingdom, uh the uh, there was an incident of stealing in someone's house, right? And the king, eventually the person who had stolen, the king called both of them, the person from whose house the thing was stolen and the thief as well, right? And the king said that I'm going to punish you, the person from whom whose house the um, that particular thing was stolen, because the king said, you are the one who is acquiring so much, so that there is this gap that is being created, that the other person has to come and cannot acquire it. They have to get into a position where they have to steal, right? Do you think if everybody had their basic necessities fulfilled, so many crimes would be taking place? No, there are so many crimes just taking place because basic necessities are not being fulfilled, you know in their families, in their own house. They see that basic necessities are not fulfilled. And this is what is being talked of on a very deep level. You will see it is our attitude as human beings that is causing so many issues in the society overall, right? So existing with an attitude of non-possessiveness is very, very important for somebody who is walking on the path of you. And last one, brahmacharya, BHRAMACHARY. Brahmacharya, very easy translation for this is celibacy, but we'll understand it at a deeper level, right? So, having sexual desires is a part of us, right? So, initially, when this is talked of, people, run away from spirituality, right? So, it's very important to understand one thing, why is this talked of? And second thing, what consists of brahmacharya, right? So you cannot deny your sexual needs. If you deny your sexual needs, you will end up suppressing them, and it is going to cause a lot of havoc in other areas of your life. So suppression is not being talked of when they talk of brahmacharya, right? And that is why the level of the Raj Yogi is very high, because the yogi is able to, gain control over this desire, right? And naturally, as you practice yoga deeply, go deeper, right? This is one thing you will start coming out of, right? At least now you will be able to acquire some control over your sexual desires, not suppressing, right? But not acting as well. You will be in a state where you are able to, see the desire for what it is, right? Because, as human beings and as any other species, we have this, basic need of the body. So denying it won't do you any good, nor will going in guilt about it do you any good, right? But as you go deeper and deeper into your sadhana, you will reach a level where you start, acquiring some control over it, right? And that is what is being talked of when we talk of brahmacharya, when it comes naturally to you, right? So yogi works so much that he reaches the point where at least he is in control. He can make a choice, right now most of us cannot make a choice. If we do not fulfill these desires of the body, we will end up getting very frustrated, irritated, right? That will not happen with the yogi will do so deep sadhana that at least this choice is given in their hand, right? Do they want to act on this desire or do they not, right? Okay. And again, do not suppress it, do not, uh, go into guilt. It's a natural part of our existence, right? That is how the species, moves forward, right? So it's nothing to feel guilty about. Another thing that is there is, the energy when you indulge in any sexual activity, the energy, goes is directed downwards, right? And the yogi works on directing the energy upwards. Hence, this is a very important yama, right? Because you have limited energy, like we have, only 24 hours in the day, right? So we can choose what we want to do with those 24 hours. Some days you will be very productive, and other days you will see you're not that productive. So you make a choice how you want to use your energy, how you want to utilize your time. Yeah, so same thing is taking place over here. This energy can either be directed downwards, and it is very strong and powerful. Why? Because it leads to creation, right? It leads to the creation of another human being. That is how powerful this energy is. So the yogi, works on directing it upwards, right? But again, do not force yourself. It should come very naturally to you as you go deeper into your sadhana or meditation. It is bound to come along the way. So never force this. Understanding this same yama on another level, we can say that, Brahma is the, uh, creator of the whatever you see around, right? He is the creator. And when we talk of brahmacharya, so we are talking of the way in which Brahma, that god of creation, is going to conduct themselves, right? So in that manner, when the conduction becomes in comes in that manner, when it comes in your behavior, right? You behave in that way. That is when, you do brahmacharya. So this is another meaning. It's not just about, abstaining from sexual activities. It's also about, acquiring the characteristics of God himself, right? The way in which he would conduct himself, we are aiming to conduct ourselves in that same way. That is what we mean by brahmacharya, right? So any doubts in anything we have discussed today?
No.
Right. Okay. Okay. So tomorrow we are going to continue with the rest of the limbs, right? So let's end today's session. Back and neck straight. Gently close the eyes. We'll chant Om one time followed by 3 shantis. Inhale deeply for Om. Shanti, Shanti. Join both the palms together in front of the chest. Let's bow down and take out this moment. Feel grateful for everything we have. Rub both the palms together. Place them on the eyes. Very slowly, while blinking and looking at the palms, open up the eyes. Come back with a smile. And namaste to everyone. I will see you all for your pranayama class in the afternoon. Om Shanti and bye-bye.
Namaste. Om Shanti.